You've all heard me talk about My Pillow and Mike Lindell and how his pillows have literally changed my life. Go to mypillow.com and click on the radio listeners square. There you'll find deep discounts on all My Pillow products, including the Giza Dream bed sheets. Don't forget to use the promo code Carter. Do I have a show for you today? We are going to be talking about the space race between the U.S. and China. And guess what? John Brennan, you all know how I feel about John Brennan. I don't feel much for him, but he is actually admitting that there may be something, life in space. I'll talk to you about that later. Also, really, really important story here. Biden, President-elect Biden, actually is planning a reset with Cuba. Think about that, guys. Didn't the Cubans attack our diplomats at the U.S. Embassy in Cuba? And also today, we've got a big story. HHS Deputy Secretary is going to be here with me. We're going to be talking about COVID. You do not want to miss what he has to say. Guys, this is a big show today. But first, I just want to get to you a little bit about this pandemic. You know, living an unhealthy lifestyle can actually put you more at risk. That's why I recommend you take Field of Greens, guys. Field of Greens by Brickhouse Nutrition. Take it every single day. I do. It makes me feel healthier. I feel like I've got so much energy. Field of Greens is packed with 18, get this, clinically researched essential fruits and vegetables, plus green tea, ginger, turmeric, and beets. Think about that. This powerful combination not only can support heart health, it can support a healthy immune system. And that's what you need to fight COVID. Metabolism, it helps your blood pressure and digestion. Just put 1 scoop in a glass of water, stir it, and you're ready to go. Go to BrickHouseSara.com and get 15% off your first order with the promo code Carter. That's CARTER. That's BrickHouseSara.com. Available in 2 flavors. Both are great. I've tried them both. BrickHouseSara.com. Promo code Carter. So let's start with the big story of the day. Wow. Trump signs a Space Policy Directive 6 on nuclear power and propulsion. I'm going to tell you guys why this is so important. I have been talking to sources. Yes, I do have sources. I even have sources inside Space Force. And they have talked to me about the importance of this branch of the military, particularly now, because we are in competition, guys, with China, Russia, and others who want to put their mark in space. But not only that, it's all those satellites. You know, we don't even think about this, right? Every day we're on our phones, we're talking to our friends. Maybe we're sending and receiving images from other parts of the world. We also have, you know, our intelligence agencies and even our geospatial operating, all kinds of interesting things that we need to have satellites for. We can't get these images, not even in war zones, right? Unless we have those satellites in space. Well, think about this. Think about the militarization of space. That is what's happening. That's why the Chinese have such a big interest in space. That is the reason why. I know a lot of people laughed about it. There's that show Space Force. By the way, I love it. It's on Netflix. You guys got to watch it because it's so funny. It kills me. Like, I can't wait for the next season because I am on the floor laughing about it. But in all seriousness, the Space Force was absolutely necessary. President Trump did something so essential because we had fallen so far behind in the space race. And you're thinking, well, let's take care of home first. Let's fix this mess up before we mess everything up in outer space. I mean, for crying out loud. But look, Elon Musk, everybody knows this. And by the way, Elon Musk is awesome. He's moving, and he moved from California to Texas, or he's moving there. I don't know if he's still moving, but anyways, he's leaving California, and there's super high taxes, and Governor Gavin Newsom and all of that mess, and he's heading to the great state of Texas, which we absolutely love, the state of Texas. Congratulations, Elon Musk. You are a genius, right? I don't think we needed to tell him that, but he really is. And I'm glad he's moving to Texas. But he's also planning on sending people to Mars. And, you know, there's a lot of talk about what the Chinese have actually been doing. And I'm going to just segue here because there's a reason why Space Force is so important. And it's to keep China at bay. We do not want the Chinese or the Russians or anybody else, I don't know who else is out there or floating around in space or trying to dilly-dally up there, but we don't want them ahead of us in this game, right? Not even in the private sector, not militarily. We want to be able to provide protection for our country, keep our assets in place, and not let anything happen. And especially now that we're hearing all of this crazy stuff about aliens, right? I mean, you guys have heard the Tic Tac incidents and all of this stuff. And I've had Luis Elizondo on the show multiple times. He was head of the Pentagon's program for unidentified aerial phenomena or vehicles that they've been seeing. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to tell you something. John Brennan, and you all know how I feel about John Brennan. I am not happy with John Brennan. I'm going to go through my phone here because Luis Elizondo actually sent me a text, right? He sent me a text last night, and it was regarding John Brennan. And I was just stunned. You know, Greg, the producer on the show, one of the producers, he's like, now are you going to believe in aliens or not? Now that Brennan is saying there's probably aliens out there, because we know John Brennan has lied so much. So I don't know if I should feel happy about this or if I should feel disappointed. But let me read you his quote. I think it's a bit presumptuous and arrogant for us to believe that there's no other form of life anywhere in the entire universe. That might be subject to a lot of different views, but I think some of the phenomena we're going to be seeing, that's interesting. Some of the phenomena we're going to be seeing. It's like he's predicting the future. I don't know. Sounds kind of weird, or like he knows something. We're going to be seeing continues to be unexplained and might, in fact, be some type of phenomena that is the result of something that we don't yet understand, and that could involve some type of activity that some might say constitutes a different form of life. Well, that's John Brennan's way of saying with a million words that there might be some aliens out there. It would have been just that simple. Just say there's aliens out there, and then we would understand where he was going with that. So I don't know. To answer Greg's question, I'm now very conflicted because if John Brennan is trying to get me to believe in aliens, look, I already believe there's life out there. That's why I've had Luis Elizondo on the show. And, you know, we've been talking about these mysteries. We can't tangibly prove certain things. You know, we don't have the alien. We can't show him to you. But we can say that there's some activity in our skies that is unexplainable, right? So, okay, good for John Brennan. I'm just going to leave it at that. You all make up your own minds. It's not my job to tell you guys how to feel about John Brennan, but I thought it was good to read that. And I'm grateful to Luis Elizondo for sending that to me. Now, really quickly, you know, China's Chang's E5 lunar probe successfully, guys, delivered moon samples to Earth. This is a big deal. This is what I was talking about just a second ago. This is the reason why Space Force is so important. This is the reason why media, President-elect Biden and Harris need to really take this seriously. We've got to pay attention to what's happening and the competition from enemy states, such as, enemy states, right? And enemy nations, such as China, Russia, Iran. We've got to pay attention to what they're doing. We can't get lazy. We can't say, oh, we're not going to fund that anymore. We really need to fund these things because there's activity happening out there in space. God only knows what. The Chinese are up there on the dark side of the moon, trying to dig up rocks, bringing them back to Earth. We don't even know why they're doing it. I hope they're not drilling into the moon. I hope the moon's okay and safe. I hope nothing weird is going on the moon. But this is important because China has become only the third country in the world, guys, only the third country in the world to be able to successfully collect rocks from the moon and deliver them. So in the early mornings of Thursday, Beijing time, the country's unmanned Chang's 5 mission returned to Earth carrying the country's first moon samples. And that was according to Chinese state media. I still have to verify that with U.S. intelligence because China lies. And we're going to talk a lot about that when I bring the HHS Secretary, Deputy Secretary on. Because remember, early on when we were covering all of these stories on COVID, and I'm just going to segue to this really quickly. When we were covering all these stories on COVID, in January, February, and March, there were videos coming out of China showing people basically falling in the streets, apparently dying. And you know what? Okay. I haven't seen that happen since early on. So was that Chinese disinformation? Were they trying to scare us? What was happening here? I don't know. But I will ask the deputy HHS secretary about this when he comes on. By the way, guys, the weather is getting cold. I keep talking about this. It's really cold actually right now. It was like 27 degrees this morning. My poor little daughter, she looked like a popsicle on her way to school. Yes, she is in school with a mask on her face. And by the way, her school decided that today it wouldn't do what the county decided to do was shut the schools because it was so cold. They said, no, we're staying open because the roads are clear. Your kids are going to learn today. Thank you so much to the Catholic school system for doing that. I'm glad she's at school today. But it was really cold. But guess what? I sent her to school with heat holders, gloves, right? With a scarf, with a hat on her head. She was super warm. And she didn't have to worry about that cold because heat holders makes the warmest thermal socks around. It also keeps your feet warmer than just ordinary socks, even in the coldest conditions. Go to heatholders.com and enter the code Carter, that's CARTER, at checkout to save 15%, another 15% off your order. And remember, these are great Christmas gifts. Receive free shipping with any purchase of $25 or more. It's super easy to do. You'll buy blankets, gloves, hats, socks, and they're gorgeous too. Super soft, feel great, look great, right? You can't go wrong. There's no need for icy cold feet this winter. Just go to heatholders.com and use the promo code Carter. That's CARTER. That's heatholders.com, heatholders.com, making life warmer. Now, without any further delay, I'd like to bring the Department of Health and Human Services Secretary, Eric Hargan, onto the show. He is going to answer all of those questions that you all have about COVID and the miraculous new vaccines that are going to save lives and make our lives better. Deputy Secretary Hargan, thank you so much for being on with the Sara Carter Show today. I know it's been an incredible day. Actually, it's going to be life-changing for so many people. You've been watching the Moderna committee actually talk about the new vaccine that is coming out and rolling out across the country. Pfizer also has a vaccine that's supposed to be over, 97% effective, these vaccines. Talk a little bit about that. I know everybody's on pins and needles. Everybody wants this vaccine, wants life to get back to normal.
Yes. I've been watching the Moderna Advisory Committee this morning, the FDA Advisory Committee that's considering it this morning. So it's going on right now, and that's probably going to run throughout the day. People can watch it at fda.gov. We're live streaming it so people can see the same information that the Advisory Committee is getting. You can see it as well, and you can see their deliberations over it. But it's looking, the numbers are coming in very well, very encouraging, just as they have all along. That's, it's over 94%, 95% effective. So you're seeing the numbers look very, very similar to what we saw in the Pfizer vaccine. Right. And the great thing about this is that we already have a little under 6 million doses ready to go and get into people's arms after we get the word from FDA. And we're hopeful that FDA is going to be ready if they're, depending on how the advisory committee comes out, and again, looks encouraging, that we'll be able to get a statement of intent from FDA, just like we did before tonight or tomorrow morning, that will sort of say, FDA feels very good about the data that they've seen from Moderna. So that's really going to augment our ability to roll more vaccinations out, just to augment the millions of doses that we've already gotten from Pfizer, and to add to that. So that's going to be great. It's really going to be a substantial increase in the amount of vaccines that we can get out there and help us all start returning to our normal lives.
I think that's absolutely incredible. I mean, we have really been through a lot this year, not only our nation, but people all over the world. And this is an absolutely incredible achievement. And I want to talk about that because there's a lot of rumors, unsubstantiated theories out there, even conspiracy theories, people concerned about taking, some people, not everyone, a lot. I think there's more people that want to run out and get the vaccine than there are those that don't. But how do you explain to people, like, this Operation Warp Speed, getting the private companies to get ready, research and development, to put together these incredible achievements in such a short period of time. How do you, maybe satisfy those that are concerned about taking the vaccine and tell them, look, this is more important than, and it's safe? How do you convince them of that?
Well, I'll say first off, the moment that I can get the vaccine and my family can get the vaccine, I'm taking it. And so there you go. I'm on the board of Operation Warp Speed here at Health and Human Services, and I've been seeing the data going on. We have over 70,000 people enrolled between the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, over 70,000 people, and we have not seen any severe negative reactions so far in those trials. So I feel strongly about this. I'm talking about myself personally on this, that I would do that. But then you look beyond, people say, well, why is it moving so quickly? This is really a record in terms of the modern history of vaccines and being able to prepare them. And there are a few reasons for that. One is that, normally in the normal course of making vaccines, you do the research and development, then FDA kind of considers the data over a period of time. Then they move to once they approve, you move to building out manufacturing capacity. And after that, you move to doing distribution capacity. We were able to, because of the generosity of the American people and the American taxpayer, we were able to do something that was very innovative. We were working on building factories out and building the distribution system out at the same time that the researchers were working on the vaccine itself. And so we wanted to have those doses in hand in case they turned out well. If it hadn't, that would have been possibly a waste. But it turns out that our optimism was justified in these cases, and that we're able to move directly from an approval to having the vaccines in hand and then being able to distribute them right away. You saw that with the Pfizer vaccine. That's one part of it. The other part of it is that this is a national priority. So we were able to really direct the FDA agency staff, and they wanted to do this, is to have large teams standing by to analyze the data and to be able to look at it very deeply. But also there's been a lot of collaboration between the private sector and the government on this to be able to share data and to be able to see it in real time to when it's being produced. So there's been a lot of oversight.
I don't want to forget to interject here just a little bit. You brought up something very important, the collaboration between the private sector and the government. And, I remember all the time I've spent at the Pentagon covering stories when I was a Pentagon correspondent, and I was covering stories on research and development. And there was always this issue of slow rolling in the government. It wasn't that it was a bad product or there were bad products. It was that it would take so much longer if it was just the government doing it, because the bureaucracy was so heavy with red tape. And I don't think people understand this. But you brought up something very important, and I want to give credit to this administration. President Trump, everybody working together on Operation Warp Speed, the vice president, Mike Pence, people had told all of you, this could not be done. We're never going to get a vaccine in time. We're never going to get it before the end of the year. They laughed at the administration when the administration said, no, we are going to do this. We are demanding that it be done. We want to save lives. And now you have done it. You have actually done it. Do you think this is a new model for how we're going to treat things in the future?
Well, we've certainly got a lot of lessons learned about this, and that we can do things much more quickly than we had anticipated. Some of the things, like saying this is going to be the number one priority for FDA, you can't really do that for more than one priority. So the conditions of the national emergency mean that we're able to dedicate staff and pull them from other places. I don't know if we'd be able to do that in regular course, but there are a lot of reforms that we can make to our regular regulations and the kind of red tape that we normally have around here. There's a lot of reforms that I've been talking with the staff here about that we want to carry over into the future. We've been doing that all along. You've seen that we had record numbers of generic drugs that have been approved in this administration already at FDA. And that's because of regulatory reforms and agency reforms that have been carried out already. And we're able to use those new models and that already much more efficient regulatory process and really augment it because of the emergency to be able to deliver this to the American people less than a year after we got the viral sequence from China. And so that is
stop right there.
Achievement.
The viral sequence from China. I've heard people bring this up like, we had to get the viral sequence from China. Now WHO is heading over, sending experts and epidemiologists there to conduct research in China and Wuhan to see where the strain first started. It seems like a long way. I mean, it seems like that should have happened in the first month, not a year later. I don't know if I don't know how, as a scientist, how that would affect their research. But talk a little bit about getting that virus strain. And this is, again, for all those people out there that don't understand what this means when you create a vaccination. I am going to get vaccinated. I am with you on this 100%. My family will get vaccinated for it as soon as it's available. I believe in that. I believe in modern medicine and protecting my children from, COVID and my family, and especially those who are elderly and more susceptible. But talk about the virus strand that was used in order to develop this vaccine.
Well, they did give us the viral sequence in January, but the investigation that there was a lot of dragging of heels on the part of China to be able to allow in international observers and researchers to figure out exactly what was going on here. So there are still a lot of mysteries about the origin of this viral strain and exactly how it appeared, when it appeared. And so I think that that's going to be something that we're going to be digging into really for a long time in the future. But a lot of it, I'm afraid a lot of the data on the early outbreak is probably long gone, even at this point.
That's the way I feel about it. I also, I haven't heard anyone bring this up. Maybe it's just me. But early on, I remember a multitude of videos. I don't know if you remember this, Deputy Secretary, but a multitude of videos where people in China were walking down the street and then they just collapsed, looked like they were collapsing into a coma or passing out. And the Chinese were pushing these videos. I'm assuming it came from the Chinese government, because I can't imagine anything in China not being monitored, right? I have friends that have gone to China and all of a sudden their phone, they go to send a picture or something and it just disappears, and they're not able to send it because it blanks it out, or they get a message from the Chinese government saying you can't send this, picture. And they'd be like, whoa, how did that happen? But, so these videos started surfacing. And I remember early on thinking to myself, before it spread out of China, like, what's going on there? This has got to be like one of these insane viruses like we see in the movie Contagion, or, some kind of Armageddon virus. Like, people are falling on the street and they're dying. After that happened, we never really saw that again, right? So
we didn't. And certainly we didn't see that kind of thing happen in the United States. The virus has taken a pretty terrible toll on the United States, both from the point of view of the lives, the suffering, and then also obviously the economic effects from the lockdowns that have been imposed because of the viral spread. So there's been, kind of a 1-2 punch on that, which, thankfully we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not an oncoming train. This is something that we're really seeing. We're really seeing positives really appear here. But I think we're going to be having to do a retrospective on this. I mean, not only from the point of view of China and the origin of this and kind of the scientific origins of where this virus came from, but also our own response to it from a public health point of view, exactly what the interventions that we took, what the public health implications of what we did were. I think that, a lot of things have been handled just because people had to act very quickly in the face of a lot of unknowns, particularly earlier on in the year. A lot of people don't see it. Science really has been sort of happening in real time over the course of the last year. And a lot of stunning science has been happening in real time. And hence we end up with these new vaccines happening, before a year is out, even from that very little beginning of getting a genetic sequence, to be able to get that, to make a vaccine out of that, to get that into people's arms, to conduct the trials, get tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Americans actually to sign up for these trials across the vaccines, to be able to evaluate over 100 candidates for vaccines, whittle it down to a handful, be able to sort of put resources behind all of those things. I mean, I went to a vaccine factory earlier in the year, and it had been a concrete slab, 2.5 months earlier, and it was a it was a factory 2.5 months later. I mean, that just shows you what America can do when you put resources and the ingenuity of the American people behind it, that you can get these things done. I think it should be.
That's so incredible to me. I wanted to ask you, because you were there at the factory, did they talk at all about the RNA technology, all this new technology in the development of this vaccine?
Yeah, I mean, you look at this new technology, because while we have some of the older technologies, very traditional technologies that companies are sponsoring for this, they're somewhat slower in development. That's how the people who are saying it's going to take a year, 2 years or more, they're really looking at the older vaccine timelines for older technologies. These newer technologies take less time. The real question was whether they were going to be safe and have efficacy, not about how long it takes to make them. This may change, has a good chance of changing our timelines for producing these kinds of products in the future, and really shorten the amount of time we do in the future for these things. That's
so incredible to me. And it always, out of tragedy, comes these innovations. I mean, it's kind of like when, I'm covering the war and I'm in Afghanistan and Iraq, and, over the years, the battlefield injuries actually led to innovations in science at the Pentagon, and even, in the private sector, where we saw incredible, robotics achievements, and limbs that were almost like that feel heat and can move based on, your brain. And I mean, there's just so much incredible innovation here. And I'm thinking about this, not just in the sense of COVID, but the success of this for future, viruses that we're going to be tackling. One of the things that came up, and this is to me really interesting, and I pose this question to you, is the evolution of this virus, because we're seeing a new strand, or apparently some type of new strand in Great Britain. Is the vaccination going to work against, I guess, the new strands that we're seeing in other parts of the world, or is it this RNA technology going to allow us to enhance the vaccine as this virus mutates?
So, we've been kind of our researchers have been pulling out, viruses all along to see whether or not they're mutating in a relevant way. So coronaviruses can mutate. The question was really, are the ways in which our vaccine fights the virus, the parts of it that it attaches to, are those mutating? That would mean that our vaccines weren't going to be as useful. So far, so good. Like we're keeping our eye on this, because that's obviously an open question. That's been an open question that we've been talking to our researchers about for months. Is, we don't sort of want to sponsor all these vaccines and then find out that the virus is kind of mutating underneath us and sort of taking away all of the, the rationale for why we sponsored particular vaccines. So we've been looking at this question all along and kind of trying to keep on top of it.
So that's good to know. So we're seeing that epidemiologists. Are you working with epidemiologists all over the world? Is this explain that. How do you do that?
So we have all kinds of organizations, both in the private sector, that sort of keep on top of this thing, and also we talk to countries around the world, both at the departmental level and CDC and others of our researchers, NIH and so on. We give grants out all over the world, and we talk to the researchers who are keeping track of where these viruses are coming from, so that we make sure that we don't end up with the virus mutating underneath us. There are, it started out with a couple of strains of the virus already, but so far so good. You can't say, permanently for the future that there won't be a mutation. Coronavirus is something that has a lot of different strands to it. But again, this one seems to be, from a relevant point of view, seems to be stable and reacting to our vaccine. That's why you see the cohort that we're seeing, 94, 95 or higher degrees of efficacy for the vaccines that we've got in place right now.
Even if it was 80%, you would want that, because, right? And you're looking at in the 90 percentile, right? For those, especially for people that are susceptible to the virus. We've seen people with diabetes, people who are hospitalized, people who are overweight or have heart conditions. Those are the most susceptible to the virus. And so for them, I think and the elderly, this is going to be life-changing. Can you explain how the rollout's going to work? I mean, we've all been watching it in the news, the vaccine just arrived. It's going to go to our healthcare workers, I believe, first, and then explain how that works.
Sure. So, we did analysis. The CDC also has an advisory committee, just like FDA does. FDA is really looking at the safety and the efficacy of the vaccine. CDC is looking at the allocation of the vaccine, like where should the priorities be, and providing recommendations to the states. States ultimately make the decision on where the vaccines go, and we'll distribute them as the state plans sort of tell us where they need these to go. But the first level is really nursing homes, assisted living facilities and their staff, healthcare workers, as you've seen, and also frontline workers. In other words, people like the policemen who, have interactions with the public all the time. They don't really have a choice about interacting with the public. Right. And then also, of course, the elderly, the medically frail. So these categories then can be taken, and those recommendations are taken by the states, and they put them into plans. They send them to us. Then we put the vaccines through regular medical product distributors who do this every day, and millions of shipments and will take place according to normal form, UPS, FedEx, and the medical distributors that do this for their business all day, every day. So that's was the decision that we made, is to make sure that we partner with the private sector that does this as a matter of course every single day, and that has been a very successful way to get the vaccine out there and get it into people's hands quickly.
So about how long do you think, in a time frame, or I don't know if you can do this, and can we expect to receive a vaccination? And will it be just a combination of Pfizer, Moderna, maybe others who are, right there in the lineup, and then you're just going to keep rolling them out?
Yes, that's exactly it. So we're anticipating by the end of December, we will have distributed enough doses, about 20 million doses. Obviously people
Is that in the United States?
That's in the United States. Yeah, American taxpayer paid for this. They paid for the research. They paid for all of this.
So your message to Bill Gates, who says it doesn't matter if the Americans paid for this or anything, it's wrong for us to get it first. It should go.
The American people stepped up to this. We all took the risks on whether this would turn out or not, and we had an overt and open decision that this was going to go to Americans first. The American taxpayers paid for this, and that is who should get this first.
America first.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so 20 million doses by the end of December, another 30 million we estimate by the end of January, and then another 50 million by the end of February. So a total of 100 million Americans vaccinated by the end of February. So it would be 20 million by the end of December, 50 million aggregate by the end of January, and then 100 million by the end of February. That is, of course, there are always potential hitches along the way. A factory could have an issue, a shutdown, any of those kind of things could happen. Distribution system could have hitches. This happens in real life. And so we're just talking about our projections. Now, so there could be some downside surprises if there are hitches in production or distribution, shipment, those kind of things. That happens as a matter of normal life. And then we also have two other vaccines, the AstraZeneca and the Johnson & Johnson vaccines that are in late-stage clinical trials. Right. So those 100 million are outside of a potential upside surprise of having two more vaccines with their production capacity coming online sometime. It could be as early as January. Can't make any promises to that because, you have to see the data as it's developing and seeing how well those vaccines are doing in their trials. But they're in the late stage clinical trials. And again, we could end up augmenting even more vaccines to get this out even more more quickly to the American people. And hopefully American people, as they see this developing, as they see it going into people's arms and all of the kind of crazy predictions that people had made about what would happen, that they're not coming true, and that people are getting their shots, they're going about their daily business.
We will not turn into zombies, America. We will not turn into zombies.
I cannot tell you, I visited with some of the vaccine people. Zombie issue, you're going to bark like a dog, you're going to turn into another animal, all these crazy things that are said. I mean, and it's crazy stuff that's said out there. But, I'm hopeful now that people are seeing very openly We already knew this because we've seen tens of thousands, in fact, over 100,000 Americans getting vaccines all along in the clinical trials. That's been sort of invisible to the American people. But now that we're rolling out millions and millions of these doses of vaccines, I think people will be able to see it for themselves. They're going to more likely to know people in their neighborhood, healthcare workers, their grandparents, parents in nursing homes who have received the vaccine, and all's going well. So that's our expectation. And we hope that as the word of mouth spreads on this, we're obviously undertaking a campaign to make sure people feel confident about getting vaccinations.
I was just going to ask. That's great. That's great
we're undertaking that because we know we need to get people's confidence in vaccines.
And eventually we will see this roll across the globe, right? I mean, this is going to be other nations are developing vaccines as well. They will also be inoculating their citizens. It's not like it's just going to be America only. It's going to be America first for these vaccines that we are developing because the American taxpayer paid for it. Right. And we are going to be, rolling those out. But there are other nations are doing the same. Great Britain is doing the same. The United Kingdom has their own. Other places have vaccines. People will be vaccinated.
Right. That's actually already happened. Yeah. I mean, Great Britain has already been vaccinating people.
Right.
Canada already authorized this vaccine, the Pfizer vaccine, a few days before we did here in the United States. So you have peer countries of ours that are already working on this. And obviously these companies are multinational. They start manufacturing in other sites as well around the globe. So yes, absolutely. And these other countries, Germany, the United Kingdom, and so on, they're all eager to get these vaccines and to put an end to it, not just in our country, but really globally, so we can sort of reopen and return to our normal lives. Absolutely.
Get our economies back in order and of course, most importantly, protect our families and our loved ones and the elderly and those who are most affected by this terrible, terrible virus. And I hope, Deputy Secretary, that our government takes it very seriously, because we know the WHO won't, the World Health Organization will not, but we investigate this and find out how this happened and why China kept this from the world early on and why China allowed it to spread globally, because this was the Chinese Communist Party not only hurt their own people and their own nation, but destroyed economies and killed people all over the world by keeping this secret. And we don't even know the beginnings of it. We don't even understand what really happened here. And I hope we do. I'm going to give you the final word, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, well, Sarah, thanks for having me on. And I hope your listeners hear, the good news that is coming from this administration and from these companies that have performed so well. And when you talk about scrutiny, obviously, we here in the United States, we always sort of turn the magnifying glass on ourselves, and we're going to be looking at the lessons learned that we did, places where we can improve. But also, it's what you're saying is absolutely valid. Other countries, international organizations, they have to undergo this scrutiny as well. Nobody in the wake of this is going to not have to look very carefully at what they did, information they had, information they shared, where these things started, how the reactions were had, and all these things. It's not just going to be the United States. Everybody's going to have to undergo this scrutiny. We're already undertaking it ourselves. Obviously, we're a country that really, argues with ourselves and undertakes a lot of scrutiny of ourselves, and that's appropriate. But everybody else will have to do this as well.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time you took to come on the Sara Carter Show. And, I hope you come back. I would like to bring you back. And I'm so glad we're not talking about it being any worse. Like, this is the light at the end of the tunnel, right? It's getting better. We're moving forward. America, we are going to get better. We are going to heal, and we are going to get this vaccination thanks to you, Deputy Secretary, and this administration.
A lot of other people. Yes, absolutely. It's a great team. Ourselves, our private partners, our staff here. I mean, and really the American public and American science and technology, the companies, the researchers, clinicians, the healthcare workers, everyone has been just fantastic in this. And, I think kudos to everybody and the American people who supported all this all along. All the optimism was justified.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Wasn't that great? Isn't that great news? I mean, I feel like we have been through so much over the last year. It was so great to hear the Deputy Secretary of Health and Human Services say, look, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I know we're all excited about that. You got to take into account what this administration has done. President Trump and Vice President Mike Pence really came through. They came through not only for the American people, but for the whole world. But I want to talk to you about an organization that I absolutely love and one that I believe you need to pay attention to and belong to. Would you pay your hard-earned money to join an organization that fought for a government-run healthcare system? I think we learned what the private sector can do, huh, folks? Just listening to what this administration has already done. Or one that was opposed to tax cuts for the middle class? Of course not. Then don't join AARP, guys. Don't join AARP. Join AMAC, a conservative alternative instead. AMAC offers that alternative to just about every benefit that AARP offers, but without the liberal agenda, folks. It's without the liberal agenda. Wouldn't you rather belong to an organization that fights for your values, like protecting our borders by enforcing common sense immigration laws, supporting small businesses, and standing up for your individual God-given freedoms? Yeah, I think so. I stand with AMAC, and I hope that you will too. Join today at amac.us/Carter. That's amac.us/Carter. The benefits of membership are great, but the cause is even greater. Join amac.us/Carter. I can't let go of one story. Before I end this podcast, I have to basically slam Governor Andrew Cuomo again. I know I wanted to end on just the upbeat note, but I can't believe Governor Cuomo. I mean, I just can't stand him. By the way, Governor Gavin Newsom is also up there. They're like tied for first place with governors I can't stand. And you saw all the excitement on the show today. We've got this COVID vaccine. It's going to come. We are going to get better. We're going to do everything we can to protect those most vulnerable. And I'm so grateful that the Deputy Secretary talked about putting America first, right? We have really been suffering. We have lost so many people to this horrific virus. We have seen businesses shuttered, especially in Democratic-run states. Look at what's happened in California, New York, right? Shutting down restaurants, shutting down businesses, all the while these highfalutin Democrats, elitists who think of everybody else in the world as deplorables, are out there drinking wine, living a lavish lifestyle, hanging out at fancy restaurants. We've seen all these stories. We've seen them all. We've seen them all. And now Governor Cuomo is closing down indoor dining inside New York City over COVID concerns. Let me explain something to you, Governor Cuomo. The restaurants right now are so clean, you could pretty much eat off the floor. I mean, I wouldn't suggest it, but you pretty much could. I mean, I'm talking to people, even in New York, even here in Washington, D.C., in Alexandria, Virginia. I go to restaurants. I mean, they are immaculate. Everybody's wearing their masks. Everything is beyond clean. It actually worries me because I think we're losing our immunities to other viruses because we're so ultra clean now over the last year. But you're actually going to shut down restaurants and people are going to lose their jobs forever. I mean, until they find something else. Some people are going to lose their restaurants forever. This is so wrong and so unfair. I want you to think about what Governor Cuomo did. He doesn't even talk about this. This is a guy that is like, I don't even understand. He won some kind of an award. I mean, Janice Dean, who I absolutely love with Fox News. She's amazing. She lost both of her in-laws in New York City to COVID. You know why? You want to know why? Because Governor Cuomo, at the beginning of this virus, you know, when it was just starting to rip through the city, put people, I don't even know why this happened because the Javits Center was there. They had the USS Comfort there, put people with COVID that were recovering or people with COVID into nursing homes. Let me read some stats here. 40% of COVID deaths have been in nursing homes. That's 110,000 people plus so far, right? And think about this as well. Restaurant and bars account for only 1.43% of COVID cases. Yet we are going to shut down the restaurants. And you know what this is? This is virtue signaling. I'm going to pull this up right now. I'm looking here in my trusty Google Docs, and I have this great story that Jenny Terr, she writes for me at SaraCarter.com. You got to go there, read all of our latest stories. Remember, SaraCarter.com. Please, you guys, follow me on Parler. I'm just going to talk about Parler at Sara Carter Official, because Twitter and Facebook and all of these guys, they are just crazy partisan and trying to control the narrative. They're not letting us actually tell you stories. They're actually stopping news. They're actually navigating it for us and shutting people down. We'll talk about that on the next podcast. But I want to read this really quick. Governor Cuomo is shutting it down. A 2-week closure leaves restaurant owners struggling to afford to keep their businesses open while workers face losing their jobs all during the holiday season. I mean, what a jerk. Can you imagine? Can you imagine right now? For those of you out there that are listening to me, my heart is breaking for you. If you live in one of these states and you're losing your job, I can't even imagine what you are going through. I can't even imagine what that must be like, because I'm struggling. I'm a small business. I am a contractor for Fox News. I'm a contributor, but I have a website. I run this podcast. It's not easy. Advertising dollars are down. People are sick. People aren't working. It's just a tough situation for everyone. But for all of you out there, I mean, I worked in restaurants. That's how I took care of myself in college. That's how I grew up in high school. I worked at restaurants. I mean, I needed every single dollar, and now they're already at 50% capacity indoors. It's already at 50% capacity. Can you imagine how much money people are going to lose? Their livelihoods? Governor Cuomo, you should be ashamed of yourself. Governor Newsom, you should be ashamed of yourself. And anybody else out there, Governor Whitmer, all of these people, Governor Wolf of Pennsylvania, you should be ashamed of yourselves, what you have done to this country. And thank God, all of you who put down the Trump administration, that includes you, Cuomo, that includes you, and Gavin Newsom and all these other Democrats out there who said that the Trump administration could not get this done, could not get the vaccine done before the end of the year. Not only did they get it done, now they've set precedents for future emergency crisis and situations. Innovation. It's all about private, right? The private marketplace, right? And working together with the government. That's what we're looking for. Look, America, we're smart. We know how to take care of ourselves. We know what we need to do. We're not going to put our loved ones at risk, but we are free and we are a free nation, and we will continue to be a free nation. Don't give up. Keep fighting for it. I know I will. I know you will. I am there with you. I understand how you feel. Speak up, speak out. And right here at the Sara Carter Show, we are taking the story back. Thank you, and God bless. Today, I'm joined by Rebecca Weber, the CEO of the Association for Mature American Citizens. It's also known as AMAC. The most important question, I think, for so many people out there is, how much does AMAC membership cost? What does it cost the regular consumer?
Yeah, so for $16 a year, okay, or less, you can join at a 1, 3, or 5-year membership. You get a couple of things. You get the benefits. You get a great subscription to a magazine. So for $16, you're going to receive a bi-monthly magazine. But your voice is now going to be heard in Washington. We take our marching orders from you. If you stand for faith, family, freedom, if you believe in the Constitution, if you believe in the greatness of America, if you believe in individual freedoms and everything you just said, Sara, $16 is not a lot of money to join the 2.3 million members that are really fighting hard to ensure that America remains the best country in the world.
Rebecca, thanks so much for being with me today. I'm honored to have you and AMAC as a sponsor for the Sara Carter Show. For more information, folks, visit amac.us/Carter.